Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you. And now is the time when you take that chit-chat down to a very, very small level. Say that last hello, good evening, goodbye. We'd love your undivided attention for exactly an hour. So welcome again to the 2023 Annual Awards Program for the Alpaugh Family Economic Center here at the beautiful, beautiful First Financial Club here at TQL Stadium. My name is Doug Bolton. I'm a member of the Center's Board of Trustees and your timekeeper, goalkeeper. I could only wish to be that goalkeeper, but really here to help you enjoy this program. We're going to be recognizing some educators, some business leaders who are completely committed to financial and economic literacy, economic research, and of course, are extremely passionate about our community. I don't have to tell anyone in this room that you know that financial education empowers and lifts up our young people. It improves their outcomes because it teaches them how to handle money, how to make critical decisions, how to work hard, and hopefully, one of these days, be in a great position to be able to give away that money. Programs that we have, like the Susan Starjan Student Enterprise Program and its marquee event, Market Madness, also teach entrepreneurism and also plant that seed of making little ideas poof into these big, monstrous, amazing things. And we're going to hear from a keynote speaker tonight who's a phenomenal example of essentially blowing up a little idea and making Cincinnati a major league soccer city. So I very much look forward to hearing from Jeff about that message. There's a ton of people in this room who support the center, and we want to thank you. Your names, your company names are on the program in front of you. On that program is also a novel thing in this digital age called a QR code. We love it. If you have not had the opportunity to make a donation to the center, that you take your mobile device, scan that QR code, and the online donation form will instantly appear on your mobile device. If you would like, there's also an opportunity in that form to actually put in your information about volunteering, because that is just as important to us as your online donation. So we've got some awards to give out. We're going to hear from a great speaker. But first, it is my phenomenal pleasure to introduce you to one of the center's biggest supporters. He is the president of the University of Cincinnati. I like to call him the CBO, the Chief Bearcat Officer. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Neville Pinto.
Thanks, Doug. I like that title. I am going to be the Chief Bearcat Officer from now on. But thanks also to Jeff Berding and the FC Cincinnati team for hosting tonight's special event. Really appreciate it. I'd like to acknowledge one of our academic leaders who's here, longtime dean of the college that hosts this center, Larry Johnson. How about a round of applause for Dean Johnson? Thank you. So this evening is all about celebrating those who have excelled in financial literacy and economic research. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate the award winners and thank them for the impact that they have had on our community. Let me also congratulate Executive Director David Mahan. This is Dr. Mahan's first award ceremony in his role as the head of the center. David, thank you for inviting me to this ceremony. I would also like to extend my congratulations and thanks to Dr. Julie Heath for her 10 years of successful leadership of the center. For the past 4 decades, the Alpaugh Family Economic Center has been an exceptional partner for UC. As many of you may know, UC strategic direction is called Next Lives Here. It is our plan, now in its 6th year, to mold our university to meet higher education needs in a rapidly transforming world, and in the process establish ourselves as a national paradigm for public universities for the future. This means providing educational programs and pathways that prepare our graduates to be engaged citizens and leaders in a dynamic, technology-infused, knowledge-driven economy. To accomplish this vision, our university's influence and impact has to extend far beyond our campus. It has to permeate the very fabric of our community. We seek to connect our outstanding talent pipeline of students and graduates to the needs of our community, our region, and our nation. We translate our research, discoveries, and expertise into new economic opportunities and increased competitiveness. And we enthusiastically reach down into our school systems to spark the flame of learning, discovery, and innovation in our children. The Alpaugh Family Economics Center's focus on providing financial and economic education to Greater Cincinnati students and teachers is perfectly aligned with UC's Next Lives Here vision. As you'll hear tonight, this local initiative has grown exponentially and now reaches classrooms in most of the 50 states. The team uses engaging pedagogical techniques, including, I am told, puppet-led classes to teach fundamental economic content to children as young as preschool. That is truly amazing. I applaud their ingenuity in finding innovative ways to share this valuable information. The center's evolution is truly inspiring, delivering world-class economic research and analysis to local, regional, and international clients. They are driving better economic decision-making to both public and private clients and serve as a tremendous resource for our city, Cincinnati. Thank you for attending today. Thank you for your support, and congratulations on this evening's event.
Thank you, Dr. Pinto. As I said, I serve on the Center's Board of Trustees. We have a rather large board, and so we have a leadership team that wrangles us together. The leader of that leadership team right now is our chair. Please welcome to the stage, Diane Altmix.
Thank you, Doug. It's my honor to serve as the board chair for the Alpaugh Family Economics Center. And on behalf of the board members, thank you for joining us tonight as we honor several exceptional individuals and organizations and hear from our illustrious keynote speaker, FC Cincinnati co-CEO Jeff Berding. I'd like to start by recognizing and thanking all our sponsors. Tonight would not have been possible without their support, and we're incredibly grateful. I'd like to call special attention to our gold sponsors, Nathan and Marcy Backrock, Fifth Third Bank, Ed and Nancy Fink, and our silver sponsors, the Alpaugh Family Foundation, Deloitte, Fort Washington Investment Advisors, Kroger, Western and Southern Financial Group, Schiff Insurance, and Sycamore Capital. We're also grateful to have a great group of bronze sponsors this year. I'd also like to thank and recognize my fellow board members, whose names you see here. Their dedication to the center's mission is a critical part of the center's success. So thank you for all the time, talent, treasures, and advice that you contribute. I'd also like to extend a special thank you to our event committee chaired by Brian Brockhoff. This is not an easy event to pull off, and his dedication and work is important, and we thank him. You see the names of the annual events, you see the names of the committees here. The annual event is a little different this year than in years past for a few important reasons. First, we've added 2 new awards. We'll be honoring Northside Bank and Trust with our Step Volunteer of the Year Award, and presenting the Research Impact Award to OACTS for its incredible successful campaign with the research team's analysis of the economic impact of career technical education in the state of Ohio. Both awards are overdue, as STEP simply would not be possible without the hundreds of volunteers who visit schools across Greater Cincinnati each year to help us keep STEP stores running smoothly. High-quality economic research is also a crucial mission of the center, and our world-class research team is delivering valuable insights to corporate and nonprofit clients, enabling them to make more informed decisions to drive growth. And we also have a new executive director this year, Dr. David Mahan. David's predecessor, Dr. Julie Heath, invested a decade of hard work, creativity, those puppets, and collaboration in the center, setting it on an incredible trajectory for growth. We're proud and excited to be honoring Julie tonight with our Economic Empowerment Award for all her contributions. So with that, I'd like to welcome David to the stage.
Thank you, Diane, Doug, and President Pinto. It's wonderful to be here tonight celebrating excellence in financial and economic education, as well as economic research with all of you. As many of you know, I spent several years as a high school teacher before going on to teach in college. And that time spent in the classroom gave me a real appreciation for how challenging a career path education can be. But long before this pandemic, teachers took on a challenge of being an educator, a counselor, an advocate, a coach, and sometimes even family to the children we serve. This is hard to do in normal times, but the last few years have been especially difficult for teachers, students, and their families alike. Despite these challenges, our professional development sessions have been filled with dedicated educators attending these workshops after long days in the classroom, eager to learn more about effective ways to teach personal finance and economics to curious students. These teachers are eager to perfect their craft, and I'm happy to welcome them here tonight. If the last few years have taught us anything, it is that we need to work together to provide the best education for our students. We've seen teachers become more agile, more creative, and resourceful to meet the needs of their students while dealing with unprecedented challenges. We are happy to support their efforts with resources like SmartPath All Access, our adapted curriculum for students with developmental disabilities. And this fall, we'll launch SmartPath in Spanish, which will help teachers across the country serve more students and put SmartPath on the path to become a global resource for financial education. Tonight, we'll also honor those who volunteer for our Susan Sargent Student Enterprise Program. These volunteers are the backbone of this very important work that we do. This year, we'll present our STEP Volunteer of the Year Award, as mentioned, to Northside Bank. And while they are the winner this year, I will tell you, we are blessed with so many fantastic business partners, so making this decision was very difficult on the committee. But if we could just take a moment now to recognize our STEP volunteers. If you volunteered for STEP in the last few years, could you stand up so we can recognize you, please? Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll also honor our research client, the Ohio Association of Career and Technical Superintendents, or OACS. In my time at the center, I've been amazed by both the quantity and quality of the research our team has produced, and thankful to see our clients, like OACS, successfully using that research. And you will see shortly why OACS is a prime example of the type of client that we do work for here in Greater Cincinnati. We'll also be honoring my predecessor, Dr. Julie Heath, with our Economic Empowerment Award. Julie's long been an inspiration of mine and is highly respected nationally. We're all excited for an opportunity to honor her for making the center her life's mission for a decade and for her more than 30 years of dedication to financial and economic education across the country. Thank you all for attending our event tonight, and have a great time.
Thank you, David. And so now let's get to those awards program. The STEP program, as you know, is the experiential learning experience in Greater Cincinnati. Thousands of children are participating in it, earning virtual bucks for doing things like attending class, good behavior, and other classroom goals. You just met some of the STEP volunteers, but the secret sauce behind the STEP program actually is those dedicated teachers who are helping those students figure out how to spend those bucks on things. We've got two phenomenal educators that we're recognizing, Jamie Vogt and Chad Bull from Goshen Middle School. Let's watch their story.
So STEP at Goshen Middle School, the kids absolutely love it. We started it last year, it was our first year, and we unfortunately had a teacher pass away. So Mrs. Tiki and the kids like rallied around, and they were able to donate a lot of money in her honor.
Actually, Ms. Sarah Tiki was key to getting this program in our building, along with Mark Edwards. So a lot of our kids, they saved their money and donated to the scholarship that we're putting the money towards for Mrs. Tiki. So that was a kind of a sad but happy that, you know, the kids, they wanted to do something good for her and her memory. I think we've seen growth with the kids and their money and decision making. A lot of them are holding onto their money to buy the bigger items later in the year instead of spend. And some of them do still spend. And then they're kind of like, oh, I could have saved and got this, when they see the next time around the kids get some bigger things.
In the beginning, they don't know a whole lot about interest or budget or how to do those kind of things. But through this program, we're able to talk about these words in our in everyday class, and they're able to associate it more with real life.
Kids might buy something for a friend. And I know around Christmas time last year, kids were happy that they could buy gifts for their family that they probably otherwise would not have been able to have gotten.
Financial education is important to kids so that when they get out into the real world, they understand the interest, and they understand that they need to pay off things in order so they don't have to pay a higher interest, or they just have more knowledge of economics.
Some lasting impressions for STEP for the students, I think, is that literacy piece, learning how to manage their money, seeing that you have to work for it, that it's not just something we give to them, they have to earn it. Also that I really like the piece where they get to donate to organizations and giving back to the community. I think is very important for our kids to get an understanding of as young as they can. So our kids are getting that right now in 6th grade, which is always a fun time in middle school, but they're learning that early on. So I like that part as well.
Jamie and Chad, join me on stage to collect your check and hardware. So typically, we are honoring a school for their work. This year, we're honoring an entire district, North College Hill City School District, and let's watch this video about why.
So we're trying to teach them financial literacy, financial responsibilities, being able to see what they want to save their money for, their needs versus their wants. If they want to save for something bigger, how to save for that, the interest that they would get, just learning how to save for the future.
I think it's important because they need to know, like, it doesn't matter how much money it is. You know, learning to spend it wisely, learning to save it is a good thing. But even just doing the STEP store and working with them to just save money and know how to properly spend it and not overspend, I think is something that as they get older, they're going to need to know.
I see it because they do save some of their money. And as I understand the school system, with the low economics is very high in donating funds, and the funds they donate actually go to the Scholarship Foundation. So we get the check every year or 2 years from the money they've donated.
I think the teachers get involved with it and they encourage the kids to spend wisely, and then just seeing the kids go through it and spending the money wisely and really trying to say, I'm not going to overspend, I'm going to learn to donate. I think it's just, the kids make it the fun part of it.
100%. It's such a blessing to see them come through. They're so giving. It's amazing how many of them want to donate to the cause. It's so important to physically, shake their hand, look them in the face, smile at them, introduce yourself. I think that's important for the community. I think it's important for the company that I work for, Fort Washington. We want to be a part of the community. Honestly, I think it's more of a blessing for me, and that's why I love to volunteer my time.
Well, obviously the ultimate is that they do learn this early, and that it carries through, and they're interested then in a college education and understand their livelihood will be so much better if they continue their education. What I was able to accomplish in life came through 12, 13 years of schooling here at North College Hill. So I feel if you do well in life, you should pay back and help the next generation.
All right, will the team from North College Hill join me up here on stage? I almost forgot, which one of you gets the check? Oh, okay, all right. Very good. So one of the things that the team at the center talks about a lot is how the STEP students just love the interaction with our volunteers, whether that's getting a story about double checking the math or hearing about what the student has purchased for a little brother or sister back at home, or whether it's just talking about the Bearcats or the Bengals or FC Cincinnati. Our students love our volunteers. So our next award recognizes a phenomenal team of volunteers at Northside Bank and Trust. Let's watch the video to see why.
STEP is a really great program. I really wish it could reach a lot farther than it does. I've had people, I mentioned it in some of my college courses, the program, and I've had teachers in the courses who've asked if they would be willing to come out to their areas. They're a little farther out in Ohio and Kentucky, but I really wish that it would be a part of curriculum as well as something that kids look forward to.
I mean, you have to know how to do your taxes. You have to know how to balance a checkbook. You have to know how to keep track of your money, invest, and that's life. And if we don't teach that to the children, they're not going to know growing up. Not only that, but just them coming out of their shells and talking to you from the first time to the last, you can see a huge difference.
I actually have a teaching degree, and I decided not to use it. So just being around kids has definitely been an encouragement. So that was an incentive for me because I love kids. But I think about when I was in school and there wasn't opportunities like this. So I think it's important for them to get this experience for like actual life skills that they can use.
I hope that children learn how to budget. Budgets play such an important role in your everyday life. I don't want to see children taking on a lot of debt when they become young adults and thinking that they have to take on additional debt just to have items they need. They should learn that, hey, saving money and waiting to get certain things will be worth it in the long run.
It's not as daunting when you get to that high school course or your first job or first checking savings account because you have this experience, and it might be small right now, but it'll make a difference when they get there.
All right, Northside team, join me on stage. So the center got its start back in 1976 as a teacher training initiative of the Cincinnati Chamber of Commerce. So 47 years later, it's still a core part of what we do. The center has phenomenal relationships with teachers all across greater Cincinnati, the state of Ohio, and now all across the country. But tonight, we're recognizing one impressive educator from Indian Hill Elementary School. Let's watch this video.
The stock market game has really become kind of a project-based learning experience for our students. We incorporate math, of course, so they can understand the real-world connections with all of the math, but also history and art and collaboration and communication and critical thinking. All of those elements add some real hands-on, authentic experiences for the students, so they are very excited about it.
I think it's essential for kids to learn about financial literacy early on so that they can start to learn how to manage their own money and set goals so that it'll set them up for future success as they get older and have to manage their own money. And the earlier we start that, the better off these students will be.
When we talk about STEM, we also want students to see themselves in different careers, have exposure to different opportunities. And that's such an important part of growth for students. If they don't have that exposure early on, then they don't realize those opportunities are available to them. So we want every child to be able to see themselves in what we are doing.
All of the social studies standards, the math standards, all of those things, a lot of times it's just in math, this is the formula, this is how you do it, and a lot of it's not real world. And this really gives them, like you said earlier, a real world experience, and this is how you will use math in your future. And so I think that when you can put those kind of experiences in front of kids, they can see why they are learning what they are learning. So Betsy supports every one of our teachers who then support every one of our students. She works individually with teachers. She does coaching cycles with every teacher in the building. She does walkthroughs of classrooms with other teachers. She invests so much time into our teachers so that they can in turn make a bigger impact for our students.
Of course, the kids is the best part of the job. Their excitement, listening to a 10-year-old discuss the stock market and dividends and ticker symbols, and that's pretty uncommon, and it's very exciting to hear those conversations go on.
All right, Betsy. All right, on the other side of the house, welcome Brad Evans, our research director, to introduce our new award.
Thank you, Doug. I'm here tonight to tell you about a research project that we're all very proud of here at the center. A few years ago, we were approached by the Ohio Association of Career Technical Superintendents, or OACs as we affectionately refer to them, to examine the economic impact of career technical education across the state of Ohio. To give you a sense of the scale of OAC's work, Ohio has 49 different career centers throughout the state, which high school students can attend to pursue certificates and training in everything from nursing to welding to technology and automotive services and much, much more. There are also 51 career technical centers in Ohio where adults access career technical education. We researched the economic benefits of completing a career technical certificate as represented by the increased earnings associated with full-time employment in a related occupation. We compared the projected earnings for each certificate program to the baseline earnings of individuals with a high school diploma. On average, career technical certificate holders are estimated to have annual earnings of $46,200 5 years after starting the program. This represents an earnings gain of $12,300 compared to the annual earnings of high school graduates. Average annual earnings for certificate holders are projected to increase to $50,700 after 10 years, or approximately $14,000 more than the high school baseline earnings. After 20 years, the average annual earnings of certificate holders are projected to increase to $61,300, which represents a potential earnings gain of $18,200 compared to high school graduates. The career technical education that adult certificate holders receive leads to a higher earnings potential on average when compared to individuals with a high school diploma. These additional earnings generate fiscal impacts for state and local government entities through increased income and sales tax revenue. Collectively, adult education certificate holders during the study period are estimated to generate an additional $74.6 million in tax revenue over 20 years, or an average of $3.7 million per year. This fiscal impact equates to $10,500 per graduate, per certificate holder, over 20 years, or more than $500 per person each year. As part of our research project with OACs, we also examined the return on investment of obtaining a career technical certificate. I know this image may be difficult to see, but on average, the return on investment of a career technical certificate is 224% after 5 years, 757% after 10 years, and 2,071% after 20 years. Those numbers are impressive, but what is just as impressive is how OACs has leveraged this analysis into high-level discussions about the importance of career technical education in Ohio to ensure Ohio's workforce remains ready.
So OAC stands for the Ohio Association of Career Technical Superintendents, and we're a nonprofit organization, and we serve the 49 career technical centers and their superintendents throughout Ohio. Our purpose is to foster collaboration among our members so that we can grow and advance career technical education. And also we do a lot of advocacy with policymakers and legislators to help promote and grow career tech. We want everybody to understand how important career technical education is to not only individuals, but also to the economy of Ohio.
It's hard for people to grapple with the size of Great Oaks. We cover 2,100 square miles. We go from over in Harrison, Ohio, up to Fayette County, Washington Courthouse area, and that's a big area. And so we have rural, urban, and suburban areas that we touch. And so we wanted to get a better understanding of the programming we provide in career technical education, vocational education, hands-on experiential learning in that region.
We know from our experiences that career technical and adult education has a great impact on people, but we wanted a third party to come in and validate that for us using research and data. And that's what happened. So, and then we wanted to focus also on that return on investment. And we looked at adult students who pay tuition and then from that, we could project that the return on investment is even greater for our high school students who are not paying that tuition to take part and not leaving the labor market to participate in training. And then we also wanted to look at the economic impact that our career centers and our Ohio Technical Centers are having throughout Ohio.
So by doing so, we were able to see the impact that we were having, not just with our adults, but then we could correlate that with our high school students. So that helped us with our messaging to our community to help pass our levy in 2018. The other beauty of that is that we found those students that took our program stayed in our communities. They didn't leave the state of Ohio, but they contributed it back. They bought homes, they bought groceries. So most of the legislators get it because they want their workforce, the people in their community, to be working and contributing. And that has a compounding effect on everyone. It creates local taxes, it generates, and so it's a win-win for all people. That's what we bring to the table. And our legislators, when they come and they see our students being successful, it's again a win for the state of Ohio.
And I want to give some credit to the Economic Center because not only did they supply us with the full research study, but they did an infographic for us that summarized the data and made it easier for legislators and policymakers and other decision makers to understand that data. And then we had an animation that we were able to share with all of our members, and they were able to take it statewide and talk with board members and chambers of commerce and just citizens in general to get the message out. I would hope that everyone sees that career technical education opens doors and creates opportunities for young people and adults, and that our graduates, when they leave with credentials and professional resumes and hands-on experiences, are ready and able to enter employment and start a career path that has many, many opportunities for them.
We're excited for the state of Ohio. We're excited for our students. We're excited for our communities, and we're glad to be a part of it.
Now I'd like to invite OAC's Executive Director, Maggie Hess, Bill Bussey, OAC's Director of the Ohio Technical Centers Division, Dr. Rick Smith, Superintendent of Ohio High Point, Joel King, Superintendent of the Warren County Career Center, and Bob Alsop, OAC's Board of Trustees, and Connie Altier from the OAC's Board of Trustees to the stage to receive the Research Impact Award.
Another special award coming up. I'd like to invite the academic director, Sue Hailmayer, to come and cue up this award.
Thank you, Doug. Tonight, our Economic Empowerment Award goes to someone who has demonstrated their dedication to the idea that economic education is not only important, but that it has the capacity to change lives. Our honoree tonight devoted her career to empowering both teachers and students, helping them understand that a mastery of financial and economic concepts could open doors to opportunities. She is literally a legend in the world of financial and economic education. And we are fortunate enough to know her as our fearless, kind, brilliant leader at the center for over a decade. Here's a closer look at the work of Dr. Julie Heath.
I was a little late to the game in terms of economic education. I didn't even know economic education existed, really. I got my PhD, went to the University of Memphis, and maybe my second or third year there, I got chosen to participate in a Princeton Research Fellows program, and for 2 consecutive summers. And the point of the program was to encourage young, up-and-coming researchers to engage with economic education. And so economic education. And so that made me aware of the subfield, and it made me aware of the Council on Economic Education and the National Network. Some years after that, I was asked to be department chair at University of Memphis. And while I was the department chair, Memphis was and is a rather challenged city. And at the time, they were #1 in bankruptcy in the country. So I started thinking, what can this department, what can economics offer to this community? And landed on economic education. So I started a center there. It was just me, not even all of me, like a fourth of me. And I started a center then because I didn't have to ask anybody's permission. So I just thought this is an appropriate way for economics to give back to this community. And I started training teachers, and the elementary school teachers just ate it up.
She worked with groups of teachers in the school districts and developed curricula that were most appropriate at different ages. And so I think she truly put her knowledge into productive work that makes a difference for society, for families, for people growing up with children, but also the children themselves.
And off we went, and we launched Smart Tennessee, which was the first program of its kind to reach down to elementary into middle school for financial education. And it still exists.
She worked across the entire state to not only bring financial education and economic education to students, no matter what zip code they lived in, no matter what school district they were in. She did it from the point of view of the students who were learning the topic. The students saw themselves, they saw people like them, they saw their own experiences in the initiatives that she created, in the curricula that she created.
Yeah, I think that's the genius of Julie, is that she's able to take oftentimes really complex economic concepts and boil them down and deliver them in a way that even elementary students can understand. And I know there's a stigma out there about, you can't teach economics to young children or personal finance to young children. But Julie helps dispel that notion. Like her materials are easy to use for teachers, and I'm a former teacher myself, and to me, that's the most important part. If teachers look at these resources like SmartPath and say, oh, this is something that's going to be valuable in my classroom and I can use them, they're going to be successful. And I think incorporating puppets into financial education and economic education is genius. I don't know a kid in the world who doesn't like a puppet. And if you can get kids interested in the puppets and then deliver the economics and the personal financial literacy through the puppets, that is a win-win for everybody. It makes the teacher's job easier, and ultimately the students are better off because they're going to walk away from the experience knowing economics and knowing personal financial literacy.
Economists aren't really trained to be all that creative. I guess conducting research, there's a certain amount of creativity, and that's what I was trained to do, to be a researcher. So you have to be creative that much. And to be a really good classroom teacher, you need to be creative.
You have two choices in life as a parent. You can either choose the path for your child, or you can help your child choose their path. Julie helped me understand the importance of helping children learn their path into life. Overwhelmingly hard to do, and quite honestly, even with STEP and with many of our high school, elementary financial literacy programs, it's a mysterious metric. We don't really know what the impact of what we're doing is going to have on the life of a child until many years from now.
Julie emphasized that building
the foundation of early decision making was important for all kids. She felt that, and she often said, you don't start teaching math in high school, you start at an early age, and she felt the same way about financial education. We have seen that early decision making changes students' lives.
I think when people think about economic and financial education in terms of what students get out of it, it can tend to be fairly limiting. They think in terms of vocabulary or knowing the supply and demand cross and what that means. But I think if people think about economic and financial education in a broader way, we're teaching students how to make good decisions. And that doesn't just apply to how they control their money or anything specific to economics. It can extend to every facet of their life. So it's empowering to students because they realize that there's power in their own thinking, applied to everything.
You know, in order for economic education, personal finance, financial education to be truly impactful, we have to innovate. We have to create relatable experiences, timely experiences, so that young people and older people alike can retain what they're learning. And Dr. Heath is focused on innovation in everything she's done from the beginning of her career, all the way down to her most recent Emmy Award.
As far as economic educators go, I really think if I was in charge of the Mount Rushmore of economic educators, Julie Heath would be on my Mount Rushmore of economic educators. She's just done so much in her time, to help teachers, people like me, students. She's just a wonderful person. So she's an absolute legend in economic education, and I'm really going to miss her when she's retired.
And now I'd like to call Julie to the stage to receive her Economic Empowerment Award.
The walk-up music is new this year, isn't it? Yeah.
Felt like I was in Star Wars.
Thank you very much. We had several arguments at the office about me getting this award. Clearly, I lost those arguments. I'd like to first recognize and thank my family. At my retirement party in November, I totally forgot to recognize my family until the very end. I don't want to relive that and have another awkward Christmas, so thank you to my family. For decades, I've carried around the imposter syndrome. You know, the thinking that eventually somebody's going to figure out that you're not as good as the hype, and then it's all over. I used to worry I'd get a call from my dissertation committee saying, you know, on page 142, we found that you misspecified that equation, and we'd like our degree back. Most of my dissertation committee is now dead, so I think I can move on from that one. But I have to say, after listening to all of these wonderful comments from people that I love, that I highly respect, it makes me realize what a waste of time it was to carry around that imposter complex all these years. You folks are clearly really gullible, and I didn't have to worry about you catching on to me at all. One of the benefits of the imposter syndrome is that you're very aware of the if-not-fors in life. If not for all the people who opened doors for me, who told me both yes and no, who went out of their way to help, none of this would have happened. I fully recognize that I've been the beneficiary of others' kindness, talent, and commitment to the work. And it's the work that's important. The research that's enabled organizations to better communicate their value to the community, that helps leaders make better decisions, that elevates the work in progress that is our attempt at equity. The education that gives students hope, that gives them a better chance to fully participate in their own futures, to take their place as our future leaders. The economy is not going to become less complex. Individuals are not going to find it easier to navigate their own financial lives. We need to prepare our children, both for their sakes and our benefit. And while I celebrate Ohio's recent high school financial education requirement, we cannot also forget that economics is crucial. The larger economy provides context for individual decision-making, and individuals' ability or inability to manage their own financial lives bubbles up and affects us all. Thank you to everyone here who supports the center. Thanks to the center's amazing board. Thank you to my former center colleagues who do the work every day. And I'd especially like to recognize Sue, Kathy, and Erna for all their work in putting this event together. It's a huge lift, and they do it with good humor and good grace, mostly. Awards are nice, but it's the work that's important. That and the friends who are like family you pick up along the way. I'm very honored and deeply grateful. Thank you.
So she was humble from the first day that she walked onto the University of Cincinnati campus and continues to be humble today. Let's give Julie Heath another big round of applause. So the true MC of tonight's program, you heard him introduced as the program chair for this evening. Please welcome Brian Brockhoff.
Doug, thank you. And Julie, wow. What do you say? Jeff, I don't know about you, but I know how Buzz Aldrin feels. Finishing second, coming up second to this is this is pretty big. But I'd like to actually thank all of you that are here this evening, because this event actually was the brainchild of a gentleman by the name of George Riedeveld, who many of you know. George was a longtime patriarch of the Economic Center, and 14 years ago he had the idea to create a fundraiser to enhance the awareness of the Economic Center. And I'm pleased to share that this is our 14th year of having our event, and thanks to all of you, the sponsors and all the guests that are here. We're once again sold out. I think we've been sold out every single evening we've had this event. And we've raised over $160,000 for the center this evening. So thanks to all of you for your support. And as Julie was so kind and humble as always, there are three wheels on the bus that the bus does not roll without Kathy, without Sue, and with Erna, because without the three of them, none of this is reality. And then also for our committee, you folks saw the committee earlier. The committee has just done a great job with tonight's event. And I'd also like to thank Vince Cicero, because Vince and then Shelby, Jeff's assistant, were so helpful with all the logistics. And without the two of them, we were very, very thankful. So to introduce our guest speaker tonight, Mr. Berding. I had a chance to meet Mr. Berding about 25 years ago from his locker mate at St. X, Troy Blackburn. Jeff was a fifth generation from over in Westwood. He had a chance to go to St. X, did very well at St. X, went to Miami, did extremely well at Miami, then went to Xavier, did extremely well academically at Xavier, and then actually joined the Bengals and was involved in a lot of the growth of the Bengals with their season seats, their suite sales, etc. He also served on city council, as many of you are aware, did a great job with city council. And it was just, what's so cool about Jeff is, you know, about 8 years ago, he had this vision to create this, which is where we are this evening. He went to Carl Lindner III, presented the idea. He and his family had been very involved with soccer, youth soccer throughout greater Cincinnati, had presented the idea to Carl to C3. As many of you know, the Lindners have just been godsends to the city of Cincinnati, and he believed in them. And lo and behold, they entered soccer, and then here we are today with a privately funded $250 million investment in the West End, and then also what's going to be occurring in the years to come with all the economic development is just truly amazing. So I'd like to introduce Jeff Berding, and please help me welcome Jeff to the stage this evening.
Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you to David Mahan for inviting me to be with you this evening, to all the staff. I want to thank Nick Haglin, our player Nick, Cincinnati guy, was here this evening, signed all the balls, to our FC Cincinnati staff that are here. I want to thank President Pinto for the enormous success. UC is so critical to the future of Cincinnati, and it's up on new heights, and it's going to continue going. So to all the folks here affiliated with UC. To my neighbor, Diane Altmix, I think this all started with me coaching your son in soccer at St. Ursula Villa, and to the board and all the staff. Thank you to the sponsors to make this possible. I want to congratulate all the award winners, certainly Julie. And for the students, to welcome all the students here tonight. My words tonight are with you in mind, maybe more than anyone else. So, I want to talk a little bit about Cincinnati and where we've come and maybe where we're headed. As we gather tonight, Cincinnati is on the move with many strong indicators of growth. We're not Cincy strong or Northern Kentucky strong, but we're region strong. A lot of really good trends for Cincinnati. Just to name a few, this is from Ready. Over the last 9 years, we've had 409 project wins, over 40,000 new jobs, 71,000 retained jobs, $4.86 billion in investment, $2.2 billion in new payroll. We've had 51 foreign direct investment wins. That shows a region on the move economically. In addition, our regional real GDP right now, 2021, Cincinnati was 100, and I think this is 62 billion, I think that's what it says, which is bigger than Pittsburgh, Nashville, Indianapolis, Kansas City, Columbus, and Cleveland. So we have the biggest regional GDP of any of those Midwestern cities. So that's the good news. Yet even with these good numbers and a positive story to tell, I feel we're not getting enough done. So to make the point, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to talk just briefly about something that's near and dear to my heart, FC Cincinnati. So as Brian indicated, Carl Lindner and I started working together in January of 2015 to bring professional soccer to Cincinnati, to build out this business plan that I had written, and make Cincinnati have a third major league team in the sport that my children loved, soccer. I grew up on the west side in Westwood. I loved the Big Red Machine. I played baseball. I wanted to be a Reds player someday. So my teachers and coaches on the west side at St. Catherine's, they told me it was okay to dream big. Yeah, you could be a Reds player, right? And I knew that Cincinnati was the best city in the world. How did I know that? Because our baseball team in 75 and 76 was the best baseball team in the world, right? And so that connective tissue that is young children and their professional sports teams, and that belief and that ambition that comes from coaches and teachers was so formative to my early childhood experience. And yet my kids were rooting for a team in Manchester, England. Like they're missing out on that connectivity in their sport. So I had this idea, I wrote a business plan, and by 2015, Carl and I are working together, and in May, we go up to MLS in New York City to pitch Major League Soccer on this idea of awarding us a franchise. So the meeting went well. In fact, it was clear that the opportunity was ours for the taking. Right? So anyway, after the meeting, Carl and I had dinner that evening. And we were talking. We believed the timing was right. We had the data showing that the growth of soccer and MLS was on a trajectory. We reviewed all the work necessary that was going to make this project successful, where we would need soccer fans in the region, young fans, young players, soccer families, our business community, really the whole region, to be excited and get behind the effort. A leadership team was going to need to be assembled where people would need to upend their lives and start behind this idea and dedicate themselves to making this a reality. It wasn't a slam dunk. As confident as I was, it was not a slam dunk. So during our conversations, Carl says to me that, Jeff, my family and I, we're all in. We're all in. We're going to play the games at Nipper. We have great support from the university. I'm all in. But he says to me, to make Cincinnati have this, to have FC Cincinnati be created, there was one thing that we hadn't solved yet. He said, I have to ask you a simple question, Jeff. Are you all in? Well, I hadn't really thought about it that way. He says, because if this is going to work, this is your dream. You got the political background. You have the youth soccer community, right? You sort of know the business community that you can, sorry, that was someone else's speech. You're going to have to leave the Bengals, where I'd been for almost 20 years. You're going to have to leave the Bengals and jump in with both feet to make this happen. It was a life-defining moment. I had kids in school. I had a good job. We had a comfortable life together. My kids only knew me as their dad that worked for the Bengals. They love that. I love that. So was I ready? So I'm sitting there with Carl. Did I really believe the region was ready? In short, were we all in? All in, not halfway, both feet in. So I answered yes. And Carl pulled the trigger on the funding, and the rest is history. And then we came together as a region to get it done, and FC Cincinnati was born. Now, I don't tell this story to promote FC. I don't tell it because, I feel that I did anything extraordinary, because I have people that make it all happen. I was probably persistent. But I tell the story because I believe that the Cincinnati region, we are at a crossroads. And if we rest on our laurels, we will be left behind. We need to talk less and do more. We need to be ambitious and unite behind a common vision. So in short, like Carl and I were around our FC Cincinnati vision, we need as a region to be all in. Now, don't get me wrong. It wasn't easy. We had, as I said, great partners at the University of Cincinnati, the administration, the board, in athletics, at UC Health. The club grew organically, word of mouth. I wrote the marketing plan based on Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point. Seemed like it made a lot of sense to me. It spoke to me. So we focused on our most important influencers. We had those youth soccer families, right? We had I called them the soccer passionistas that were at the bars on weekend. Carl and I went and bought them beer on Saturdays and Sundays and said, help us create the Bailey. The Bailey's the part where the fans are standing and cheering and singing and smoke. Hadn't seen anything like it, but you see it if you watch soccer on TV, and we were going to create that here. We would need the business community who would see this as a draw as we recruit international companies, as we recruit talent. All of us coming together, ready for something different, right? We were going to be a winning team, a family-friendly, inclusive club, and a franchise that was giving back and making the community better. That was going to be our calling card. That was going to be our story. Well, we won our inaugural home match at Nippert Stadium literally almost 7 years ago tonight in front of over 14,000 fans. By the way, the league average was 3,400. We did 14,000 our first night. We never looked back. It's the smallest attendance we've ever had for a regular season game in our history. That night, 14,000. 4 months later, we had 35,000 for a friendly against Crystal Palace of the English Premier League. When Carl and I launched the club, we said we're going to promote Cincinnati to the world, and we're going to bring the world to Cincinnati. And that summer, Nippert Stadium, English Premier League, that was the place to be. That was when we tipped. After that initial year ended in the playoffs, the offseason brought new opportunities to be considered for both MLS expansion and the World Cup bid. A World Cup bid, who'd have thought, right? Why not? So we set up a World Cup committee with the Convention Visitors Bureau, the CRBC, CBC, the Chamber, the Sports Commission, and then we went to work on Major League Soccer. During the MLS expansion, they said we're going to need a new stadium plan. Now, we liked Nippert. We thought, but let's come to a game. They came to a game. They said, new stadium. So we studied multiple sites. We had 3 finalists. We got Oakley over the finish line by the time we showed up in December of 17. And the problem was the commissioner of Major League Soccer had visited Cincinnati, and he loved Over the Rhine. He loved what with the energy that we had going on in our urban core. And he said, why aren't you building your stadium in the urban core? And we said, well, that site was really hard, and we're here with Oakley. And he said, no, I'm going to give you 4 months to build the stadium in the urban core. Jeez. We had 4 months. Now, I could tell lots of stories tonight about all the hurdles, all the challenges, the crazy experience. I would put a bottle of Maker's Mark up here, and I would tell stories all night. But at the end of the day, the most important part of how we got the stadium done is this. We built authentic neighborhood trust. We listened, and we committed to doing better than what had been done to the people who lived in this neighborhood, to overcome their fears. And the reality had been that the West End over 50 years had seen decline, disinvestment, and distrust. And people were afraid of something this big. And how were we going to get that done? I went door to door in the West End. I put my political shoes back on and went door to door. They say, you're the soccer guy who's going to kick me out of my home. And I said, I am the soccer guy, but we're not going to do that. We're building our stadium in a site that doesn't require homes. Anyway, David Mann, who I had known for more than half of my adult life, at the time was the vice mayor, and David came to me and said, Jeff, you're making progress. We need to put all these promises you're making in a community benefits agreement. And I said, wait a minute, that's a legal document or contract with the neighborhood. He said, yes. And I said, well, the Reds and Bengals didn't do that. They got free stadiums. I'm doing a privately funded stadium, and I got to do a community benefits agreement. He said, Jeff, I trust you because I know you. People in the West End don't know you. They've had a lot of slick sales speeches and commitments. None of them turned out too well. We're going to put it in a contract, and I know that you'll honor it. And so we did a community benefits agreement. We created a community coalition where the folks in the West End literally advised us on the design of the stadium. They engage with us on how our fans come in and leave the stadium, community events, and the like. We work closely with the West End Community Council. A lot of people who work here are from the West End, live in the West End, and they're proud to call FC Cincinnati and TQL Stadium their neighbors. And we showed how inclusive capitalism works. So this stadium, we had over 75% inclusion. over $180 million went into wages for MBEs, SBEs, and WBEs. MBEs in particular, just the MBEs, over 25%. That had never happened before. I said we're going to exceed the casino, which was like 30. We more than doubled it. So we started building trust. After we launched, we built the largest foundation in all of Major League Soccer. I was at owners' meeting the other day, and someone said, how many people do you have working in community relations? I said 13, and they about fell out of their chair. You have 13 people just doing community relations? I said, we do. We do. We invested over $1 million in the community, give grants to neighborhood organizations. We have a partnership with Taft High School. We're not doing economic education. We are doing sports and career education around sports, which isn't just people who are the players, but it's also the people that run finances and run marketing and run ticket sales and run events and are our lawyers, right? And we want them to think about those careers so that they can dream big. We've exceeded all of the expectations. Some of you may know we took the Marvin Lewis Community Fund. Marvin's a good friend, mentor of mine. When Marvin left, the Marvin Lewis Community Fund, 16 years of legacy was going to end. I had a promise to Marvin, hey, if you leave and it isn't going to stay there, we'll take it. We brought the Marvin Lewis Community Fund in-house to keep his legacy alive. I give you all that just to say that I think that's the model of how we should be thinking about big things, is how we bring people with us in an authentic way. So what's the result of maybe doing it this way? Is, well, we're sitting here. We built this stadium. We didn't just go out to build a stadium. We didn't go out to build the minimum standards as cheap as possible just to get our expansion bid stadium. We said if we're going to promote Cincinnati to the world, let's build the best soccer stadium in the world. And last year we earned 2 awards, one from the World Football Congress, one from the United Nations, UNESCO, calling this the best soccer stadium in the world. We beat Wembley, which is where Arsenal plays, and the Bengals have played there for, when they're in England. But Wembley is sort of considered the crown jewel of British soccer. We beat Wembley as the best soccer stadium in the world. So we've been a home to U.S. soccer, both the men's team and the women's team. So the experience that people have here, we hope that people are proud of, right? We're going to continue to build it. We're about to put more investment into the West End. We're working with the Community Coalition, other partners, around a more than $300 million mixed-use development here north of the stadium. Construction will begin by year's end, right, Chad? By year's end. And a lot more to come. I said recently we're studying adding a women's team. I could see that certainly in our future. Since this is an economic group, I'm going to touch on our FCC valuation. So we paid, this is well reported, $150 million for our expansion fee back in 2018. Now franchises are going for more than double that price. Publications have said our team valuation is over $550 million. You add our stadium to the equation, and you see the growth from our mixed use, our Apple TV deal, which puts us on an NFL-like broadcast model instead of the baseball model where the Reds are challenged and the Dodgers and the Angels and the Yankees and the Red Sox all have enormous broadcast revenue. You have the 2026 World Cup on the horizon. I think it's safe to see the FCC valuation of being more than $1 billion here in the near future. And all of this resulted from my vision to give my kids and your kids and grandkids and generations to come a hometown team in the sport that they love, akin to how I love the Reds. And so now these kids, our kids, can dream big around soccer. Maybe they'll play for us someday, maybe they'll run the team someday, maybe they'll run your businesses, maybe they'll create the coolest, most awesome new businesses, right? That show Cincinnati as a great international city. We have a ways to go, but it shows the commitment from ownership to have a winning team. This year we're winning. We're unbeaten. We're at the top of the Eastern Conference. Gets back to our USL roots a little bit. It took us some time to figure it out. But now we hope we're representing Cincinnati with pride and with a chance to win trophies and championships for the region. So our story proves that we don't need to dream small in Cincinnati. We can get big things done. So while this positive news is a feel-good and the state of our region is strong, there are challenges, and I'm going to mention a few here. Challenges that require our attention and leadership. We need to be all in to get these things done. As I've been calling for over the last year with my Visit Cincy board chair hat on, it's time we have a modern arena in Cincinnati. It's time we enter the 21st century and catch up with other Midwestern cities. In the last 10 years, I think it's Des Moines, Iowa, Lincoln, Nebraska, Fargo, I think it was, or Sioux Falls. I mean, all these cities, much smaller than Cincinnati, all have modern arenas. They're getting NCAA March Madness. They're getting big conventions. They're getting big time concerts. We all have to get in the car and go to Columbus or go to Louisville. No disrespect, but Cincinnati is the Reds and Louisville is the minor league team. I mean, come on. All right? A generation ago, Cincinnati's leaders made a commitment to embrace the status as a major league city by building Riverfront Stadium in 1970. This decision and the subsequent investment led to the attraction of the NFL, the birth of the Bengals, and a retention of the Reds in downtown Cincinnati. That was a generation ago. The city government political leaders, they committed then to build a new arena on the riverfront, and 5 years later, 1975, Riverfront Coliseum opened in 1975. They were the home of the World Hockey Association's professional team. Maybe you didn't know, we had a professional hockey team here before the NHL, the Cincinnati Stingers. Since these decisions in the 70s, much has changed. During the early 90s, Riverfront Stadium was deemed obsolete. It's obsolete. And voters, with critical support from our region's business, civic, political leadership, they approved a public funding plan to build new stadiums for the Reds and Bengals in 1996. Both then, their new stadiums opened in 2000 and 2003 when Riverfront Stadium was imploded, making the way for our beautiful new Central Riverfront Park. All right? The Reds have hosted Major League Baseball All-Star Game, big concerts, playoff games, and a lot of exciting moments. The Bengals have hosted NFL playoff games, college and high school games. The region's largest tourism event is the Cincinnati Music Festival. Happens every summer in July. Each of these stadiums contribute greatly to the local quality of life. I mean, let's be honest, when the Bengals are doing great these past couple years, it's awesome. Like, we all have our chest out with pride. Hey, that's our team, right? And it brings a lot of tourism and business spending into the city. However, Cincinnati still claims a nearly 50-year-old arena as our premier indoor facility. There's nothing premier about it. 20 years now passed when Riverfront Stadium was demolished because it was obsolete. Think about it, 20 years, it's obsolete. We blew it up. That arena, only built 5 years later, is still there. Our premier indoor facility. All right? So I would argue it's time to decide whether we want a new contemporary arena to replace this original Riverfront Coliseum, now Heritage Bank Arena, once and for all. An arena that wouldn't just cheer on our local teams when they would have games there, but we'd have the opportunity again for March Madness, big conventions, religious, music, I could keep going. All of which are going to other cities and resulting in tens of millions of dollars each time we don't get one of those big events. Anyway, the way to do it is to have a study. So over the past year, a year ago, the business community, political leadership, civic, came together and said, we're going to study, we have an outdated and obsolete convention center, too soon, but it is where it was, right? And a hotel. So we knocked down the Millennium Hotel. We're going to do a new world-class headquarters hotel. We're going to modernize the convention center, and we're going to start bringing in these events that are passing Cincinnati by. All right? And for any of you who are downtown and there's not great restaurants and some other things, not enough, 4th Street isn't as it was, 5th Street, you know, we have some, like, a lot of it's because the visitors aren't here in the week that are helping support those businesses. So let's get some of those events, right? Well, anyway, the community came together and we're now very close to having a new convention center, modern convention center, and a headquarters hotel. I think you'll see construction soon. But my point is, it started with the group coming together, leaders coming together and saying, let's study it, let's figure it out. This is complicated stuff. Financial, economic, site. Who's going to be in charge? How are we going to run it? These are all questions that had to be solved for, but they got solved because a lot of smart people came together to support a study, right? So listen, I'm not saying that just because I'm standing up here tonight saying we need an arena, it's going to happen. What I am saying is we know how to get it done. We know how to get big things done. Let's once again do a study to figure out, where should an arena go? How would we pay for it? Let's hope that, and I can say that there are other models that this would be. Lots of private dollars, millions from private. Someone does naming rights. The money doesn't all go to the team. It can go to pay for the arena. So maybe a year from now then, the goal would be that we're standing here, whoever's your speaker, says, hey, Berding talked about that last year, and guess what? There's a plan. We're now going to do an arena, because that makes our city more competitive. Like, if there was ever a, if you build it, they will come, a new arena in Cincinnati would be one of those cases. All right? But we have to be all in. We all have to agree, and to our political leaders, Denise Driehaus left. I said, I'm going to call on you to get that study done and she's, I'm glad I'm not staying for your speech. Right? But that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take. So let's commit a year from now that we are together with a solid financing plan, a development plan, and we're going to commit to being all in. All right. Another one is the riverfront. So Cincinnati has this great, beautiful riverfront. We've invested over $1 billion in it. And the downtown core is coming back. And yet we have this big highway trench in between. Now, I've been to Denver and I've been to Boston and other cities. They're building a deck over the trench that connects different parts of their downtown. And we just have the trench. Some of you may know, in 1998, the business community came together and funded pillars to build the deck. Because if you were going to build the deck, you had to have the pillars, and you had to build the pillars when you were building the new highway, Fort Washington. So anyway, pillars are there. So now this connection is one of the top 5 priorities of the business community. There's been a new infrastructure bill in Washington. There's trillions of dollars going to spend. Can you spend some of it in Cincinnati, right? Like, let's finally connect the investments we've made on the riverfront into the downtown. Let's be all in on making that a top priority. Okay, so last thing I want to say as I talk about this is just, what's the role of the Economic Center? Because I'm going to have a call to action for all of you too. So McKinsey did a study for the CRBC, a comprehensive assessment of our region's growth, our strengths, our weaknesses. And I would offer, they said that we have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do, even though we have some victories. And I know in our civic pride, we tend to think of Cincinnati as superior to other cities. You've heard that in my tone tonight about some of those other cities. So guilty as charged. Guilty as charged. But I think sometimes that civic pride leads to complacency. And sometimes it leads to just feeling like everything's okay. And I'm a big believer that if we're not growing, we're dying, because other cities are growing, other businesses are growing, other people are growing. The draft McKinsey report showed that we have significant weaknesses that undermine our competitiveness. They noted that for all of our successes, we need to educate and retain more STEM grads. We need to create a more educated workforce to attract and grow companies. We need to grow jobs for our people that give them a ticket into the middle class. We need to grow our population, grow our tax base. We need more sites, pad ready, for companies to be recruited and to locate in this region, both in the urban core as well as in the suburban and exurban areas of our region. McKinsey said we have equity and inclusion, income equality, and lack of capital and high growth industries that limit us. And we have to do better. So maybe it's because of these weaknesses Some critics assert, and they do, that we should stop building, and that these same folks, they're actively working to block growth because they say until you solve these things, we can't do these things. And I'm going to offer to you, having been a former elected official, that those individuals are usually pretty loud, they're visible, they show up at meetings, you see them on the news, and they really make it hard sometimes to get a community consensus where we're investing, whether that's in public or private or a combination of both. They make it hard. And I'm not questioning their intentions, I'm just stating as a matter of fact, it makes it hard. So my hope is that we acknowledge them and say sometimes those are the only voices being heard. So if we're going to be all in with this can-do development mentality, I would challenge us to think, is there a role to play for the UC Economic Center? Other cities are growing more rapidly and passing Cincinnati by. We were in Nashville recently. They have lots of cranes up, right? Been down to Charlotte, Indianapolis, they come to mind. Do we know what they're doing in terms of economic development? Why are lots of companies there? And I know Sunbelt is a part of it, but I wouldn't call Indy the Sunbelt, right? What's their economic policy? Community building policies. Can this center be a think tank to help advise elected officials and educate the public at large around the benefits of economic investment? A group of business leaders were in Dallas last year from the chamber and other organizations, and we heard from their elected officials. We don't ask why, they said. We ask how. How can we help you? How can we meet your timeline? Can the center help us shape public opinion to have those responses be our calling card here? Maybe in the future, the center could recommend economic growth policies, right, that have worked in other jurisdictions, that would make Cincinnati more attractive to out-of-state companies, to out-of-state talent, and help support the growth that we need here. Maybe the center can scour the U.S. for innovative ways to pay for public assets, to help with financing that we should be using here. In this way, the UC Economic Center would provide what I call a well-respected, neutral, third-party voice to balance the advocates pushing policies and ballot issues that will slow growth. So my hope is we are not complacent, but in fact, we are all in this together. All in means being inclusive, ambitious, with a can-do mentality, leaning in. It's not just thinking about 23 and 24, but what about 2033 and 2043 and beyond to answer the question, what future are we creating? What are we building for Cincinnati as a region? And all that we've talked about today shows we know how to do it. Our little FC Cincinnati story maybe is a story of having that ambition and a can-do mentality and then working in partnership with a lot of people, including people who were never brought to the table, to make big things happen. So one other key takeaway is that the strength of Cincinnati and our club, in my opinion, is that we are so civic-minded. We are so civic-minded, and we do want our success to lift the condition of our city and the people in our city. For us who are our neighbors in this community, none more than our folks in the West End. But we had to be all in for our neighbors, for the people in the community. And when you work for FC Cincinnati, or you support FC Cincinnati, I hope that you see that as maybe our secret sauce, that everyone believes they are a part of, important to the success of something much bigger than themselves. A higher purpose that aligns with their own purpose, their own calling, and that they're invested in the success not only of our club, but our city. So I hope tonight we can commit to a sense of urgency, a sense of purpose. So whatever your organization, whatever your role, right, you have an important purpose to help us create the Cincinnati for the future. President Kennedy famously visited Nassau for the first time in 1962. I'm sure some of you, a little older like me, remember the story, right? He came across someone pushing a broom. And he says to the gentleman, says, "Hi, I'm President Kennedy. What do you do here?" And he said, "Well, hello, Mr. President. I'm so proud to meet you. I'm putting a man on the moon. Mr. President, I'm putting a man on the moon." Because he had that shared purpose. Everyone who worked in that building felt the purpose around putting a man on the moon. Now, I'm not suggesting that we need to have the purpose of something as complicated as putting man on the moon. I just want us to have a shared purpose about being all in to create the Cincinnati that this community deserves, that future generations will love and respect and take pride the way we take pride because of what our previous generations have built to get us to this point. So let's be all in. Let's be all in. Thank you very much.
You want a hand? Don't go anywhere yet.
All right.
Dr. Pinto, Dr. Johnson, this was my dissertation I was going to share, so everyone's in much better shape now. No, Jeff, thank you. It's really cool to hear just the vision, and your old friend from Westwood, Sue, who from St. Catherine, when you guys were, I think you said you were drinking Hootie Delight in the 8th grade in your family's garage.
It's a West Side tradition.
Well, there you go. You got it, Moody with Hootie. You've come a long way, Jeff. It's just fabulous. So you mentioned Maker's Mark. We actually have something for you.
Well, there's something else in there, too.
Cheers. Thank you. You're more than welcome. Thank you.
Good job. Good job. So thank you again, Dr. Pinto, for opening us up. Jeff, phenomenal job. All in, dream big, talk less, do more. Lots of themes in that address, and has fired us all up, I know, at the Economic Center as well as generally our role in Cincinnati. Thank you again for all of your support, for being here. Congratulations to all of our award winners. I'm positive that many of you have been here for a game. Our award winners actually have received tickets courtesy of Jeff and his team, so let's give them another big round of applause for helping recognize our award winners. I do believe we want to get pictures of all of the award winners, so please come back up to the stage so we can snap pictures. If you are parked in a place where you need a parking pass to get out, make sure you pick those up at the exits. You have them. Okay, so this young woman down here in front has them, and I think that's it. Great to see all of you. I will see you again next year. Have a good night.